Last night, you may have been watching a little TV. Maybe you're into sports. Some of you watch baseball, some of you don't. But last night, the Los Angeles Dodgers were playing against the Baltimore Orioles. And what you may need to know is that one of the blanking on his actual name because I didn't write it down, the pitcher. Somebody pull up the pitcher for last night's game. Who was it? Yamamoto. Thank you. Goodness gracious. I literally should have written his name down here. Yamamoto, right? Baseball player for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's a pitcher. He's doing something last night that is rare in the game of baseball. He's pitching a no-hitter. Now, some of you are from other countries, and you're sitting here and you're like, I don't know the rules of baseball. Here's how baseball works. You have 9 innings, right? And you have people with bats, and they're trying to hit, and the other team is trying to get them out. There are 3 outs per inning, right? And for a pitcher to allow no hits is the kind of thing that doesn't happen very often in someone's career. So as they're approaching a no-hitter, as in 9 innings, and no one is getting on base through a hit, it is exceptional. It is rare. Remind me his name one more time? Yamamoto. Thank you. Yamamoto. Okay. First inning, 1, 2, 3. Second inning, third inning, fourth inning, no hits. Fifth inning, sixth inning. Now, if you're watching the game, you can begin to feel this thing beginning to stir. The broadcasters are beginning to talk about it. The pitcher goes into the dugout, nobody's even talking to the pitcher. He's left in the zone. Like, this guy is in the pocket. Do not mess with him. Don't talk to him. Don't get in his way. Just poof. Seventh inning. Out, out, out. Eighth inning. 1, 2, 3. Heading into the 9th inning. Los Angeles Dodgers versus Baltimore Orioles. And Yamamoto is pitching a no-hitter. It's a rare thing. And the stadium is electric. Batter comes to the plate. Strikes him out. 2 outs left. Pitches again. Pop fly. Center field. Caught. 1 out left. The whole stadium's on their feet, including Baltimore Oriole fans at this point. Because you're like, this is a once in a potentially lifetime thing for me to even see live in a moment. This guy is laser focused. And no one has gotten a hit. Last batter, Yamamoto throws that pitch. And it's hit into the outfield, over the wall, for a 2-run homer. And the no-hitter is shot, dashed, gone. Electricity out of the stadium. Unless you're an Orioles fan and you can kind of salvage something out of it, right? And that you just beat Yamamoto in this moment. But still, the no-hitter's gone. So what do they do in a moment like that? The pitcher's been pitching the entire game. And so they pull the pitcher from the game because he's already thrown twice as many pitches as the average pitcher would in this kind of moment. You want to save his arm, save his strength, get somebody in there with some fresh muscle, and let's end this game at the minimum, and we'll call it a night. Kind of a bummer, kind of stinks that we lost this no-hitter, but let's get the job done. We'll finish things out. They put a new pitcher in, and the new pitcher absolutely falls apart. And in the Orioles, with 1 out left in the game, they hit a 2-run homer against the no-hitter Yamamoto and then come back and win the actual game. How do you feel if you play for the Los Angeles Dodgers? Disappointed? Yeah. Do you feel angry? You better believe it. Do you feel injustice in this moment? Absolutely. And do you also feel discouraged? I would say you feel discouragement in spades, bucketfuls, trucks of it, right? Because after all of this effort, this is literally considered one of Yamamoto's, if not the very best, one of the greatest games of his life. And yet he doesn't get the accolade. He doesn't get the name emblazoned on the plaque. And even worse, they don't even get the win. You pitched the best game of your life, and you still have a loss next to your name. Do you feel discouraged? You better believe it. In fact, those lying whispers come, right? Do they not? What are you even doing? Is anything that you're doing even making a difference? Just quit now. It's not making a difference. This is the voice, is it not, of discouragement that comes knocking on your door. It sounds a little bit like this. You've tried before and failed. Why will this time be any different? You don't have the strength to keep going. You're too tired. Just stop. What you're doing doesn't matter. Nobody notices and nobody cares. It's too late. You missed your chance. Time to move on. Or, as the one I've already said, my personal favorite, why bother? Nothing's going to change anyway. Reading this week about discouragement, I'm reading this book called 1776, and it's a historical fiction about American Revolution. Super kind of nerdy book, whatever, right? It's pretty good. It's this, I'm learning about the American Revolution. I never really learned a whole lot about it, or at least I don't remember it. But one of the things in it is they're talking about, right, the different camps, the Americans, the British, and how people are dying, right, from the spread of disease in the camp, right? It's just pervasive. It's one of the biggest things people are dying from. More than being shot, they're dying from being sick. And one of the things that struck me, though, in this moment, that the writer talks about, and you see it in the quotes from different generals, is they talk about the spread of disease, and then they speak of the corrosive spread of discouragement in the camp. And the inability to win, and the inability to fight well, not even because you got something on the inside, but because your soul and your heart is so discouraged. You'll notice that I kind of whispered those moments, the little voices, because discouragement, it doesn't come shouting. Right? Last week we preached about the giant and voice of criticism. Prior to that, it was the giant of fear. We're in a series called Giants, right? And this is the giant of discouragement. But it doesn't come barreling through the front door, kicking it in and making a super loud noise like fear does or criticism does. No, disappointment, or discouragement rather, comes and it seeps in. It whispers to you. Some of you here are K-pop Demon Hunter fans. We're fans in our house. And maybe you aren't familiar with the Netflix bombshell that it is. You may not like it, that's fine. It's literally the most streamed movie or show or whatever on Netflix of all time, if I've got my facts right at this point. And the enemy in this, the demons, guess how they attack? By whispering lies. And this is how the enemy works. The giant of discouragement doesn't come kicking your front door down. It comes through whispers in your mind and to your heart. And I'll be honest with you, full transparency. This is a tough giant to slay in your life at times. And there is not a person in this room, even the most positive person here, and some of you are unbearably positive. But even the most positive person, the most encouraging person, can feel discouraged at times. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn to 1 Samuel 17, right? And I'm going to define discouragement like this for us, right? So rather than just talking about, books and shows and baseball games, the Bible has something to say about this. And we're going to define our version of discouragement like this. Discouragement is the slow erosion of expecting God's goodness. It is the slow erosion of expecting God's goodness. In other words, I've been doing this over and over and over again. I pitched out after out after out after out. I got to the ninth inning and boom, right? The whole thing's over. The thing got lost. I don't know if I can just continue hanging on, believing for God's goodness and His faithfulness. I have been working to see my marriage improve, and it doesn't feel like it's improving. I've been praying for that child, for that teen, for that kid, and I just haven't seen a shift. I have been studying hard for that test, and yet my grades just don't show any improvement. What's going on? It's like I feel discouraged. God, are you even there? Hello? Hello? Is your faithfulness? Are you good? What's going on? And we begin to doubt seeing His goodness and faithfulness in our life. So here's our context. We've got David and Goliath. 1 Samuel 17, verse 4, a champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. Verse 16, for 40 days the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. Every single day, Goliath is coming out. The giant of Goliath comes out. And Israel is sitting there, standing there. They're in the camp and they're watching it every single day. And that's the thing about discouragement, is that it's relentless, isn't it? Doesn't discouragement come particularly at night when you're just now finally trying to relax and you're trying to go to bed and the thoughts begin to wage war in your mind? Consistently, repetitively, discouragement comes knocking on the door of your heart and your mind. You need to understand how the enemy works. It's not a surprise. It's not anything new. Several months ago, or actually a year or so ago now, we had water seep through the ceiling in our living room. And you walk in and you're like, oh my God, what's going on? And you run upstairs, and I couldn't find any problem in the bathroom above where the leak is coming through. I don't see anything in the shower, the toilet, the sinks. You're looking under the cabinets, and the only thing left is this jacuzzi tub that we never use. And it has these little doors, so you can open it and look under it, and there's plumbing, and I open it, and I don't see anything. And just as I'm closing it, I hear this. Just like that. Barely audible. And I'm like, what? Okay, what is that? And I look, and there is this little tiny hose, and it's just misting. And I'm like, surely not. Surely yes. You know, the construction crew comes and they're like, this has probably been doing this. We don't even know how long. And it's just slowly been leaking until your ceiling just couldn't bear the weight anymore. I'm so happy to spend money on that. Verse 30, David, he gets to the camp. He's bringing food to his brothers. And he's talking to the soldiers about what Goliath is saying. He's indignant about it. Who is this giant that would come out and insult the armies of the living God? I don't think so. The rest of the army is discouraged. They're hearing it day in and day out. It's relentless. He then turned away, verse 30, to somebody else, and he brought up the same matter. And the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul. Saul is the king. And Saul sent for David. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight for him. Let nobody lose heart here. In other words, let not the armies of God be discouraged. Far be it for us to lose courage on the inside. We've got to fight, a battle to battle. We've got to get out there, but we'll never win. We'll never even get to fight that fight if we don't first get this fight taken care of. The fight on the inside. What you need to know is that there is always a battle. There's a battle in the field before there's a battle in the heart. Before there was a battle in the field, there was a battle in the heart. I said it wrong. Before you ever face that giant, there is another giant that you always have to deal with. And it is the chirping voice of discouragement coming to knock you off your feet. Oh, you want to get to the big stuff, but before you do, let no one lose heart. They'd lost heart before they ever even fought the giant. We're not alone. Joshua chapter 2 is trying to lead the people into the promised land. What does the verse say in verse 11? When we heard of this, right, they're looking and facing their enemy. Our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed. Isaiah 7, Isaiah the prophet says, don't let your heart be faint. Paul, in writing to the church in Galatia, says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up. Whether it's Joshua, whether it's Isaiah, whether it's Ezekiel, whether it's Paul, whether it's Jesus, we see many times this call to not lose heart, to not let your heart grow weary, because discouragement is a giant that comes knocking. When I was in high school, I played volleyball for 4 years. In the Midwest, men's volleyball in high school was much a bigger deal there than it is here in the South. But our school didn't have a team yet. It was primarily private schools and Catholic schools that had these volleyball teams. And so we put together for the first time a men's volleyball team in my high school. And eventually, by my sophomore year, it got officially recognized and funded in the whole 9 yards. They have coached, blah, 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 blah. But one of the things that you learned quickly that your coach taught you to do is never to watch the other team warming up, especially if they're bigger than you. You know why? Because the longer you sit, this is the morning and evening night, right? This is Goliath coming out in the morning, Goliath coming out at night. You're sitting there and you're watching a team that is bigger than you, better than you, more muscled up than you, taller than you, more equipped with you, everything more than you. And you're watching them dominate before the game has ever started. And you can lose this game, I'm telling you, right here. You can lose the game before you've ever put shoes on the court because you're watching and you're letting discouragement win the battle in your heart and your mind. That's just in the physical. Spiritually speaking, how much more so is this true? And yet David almost at times seems impervious to this. I mean, this guy could not have had more discouraging moments and events in his life. And yet we see, yes, he has moments of psalms that he writes and pens that are laments and they're sad. But more often than not, we see David rise to the occasion with faith, with expectation, with trusting in God. In other words, discouragement does not have the final word in David's life. Courage does. The Spirit of the living God is alive in his life. How does he do it? So glad you're asking on the edge of your seat. Now, I knew I was going to preach a little bit longer today. You can hear me already going hoarse a little bit. As your pastor, I'm going to tell you what I know is true in this moment. I know this is true. And yet I'm going to tell you I've had a hard time living this out in the past several weeks in particular. I am telling you what I know is right and true. And I am also fully owning in front of you. And I told my wife this, I feel like a hypocrite preaching this sermon because I have been struggling to do this. I think I told you. Just now I'm going to vent this out to you for a second. Last week or the week before, a deer walks into our backyard and just falls over and dies. Okay, it's the weirdest thing ever. But it takes only an eternity for somebody to come and get this deer out of the backyard from animal control. God bless them. But my whole dang neighborhood is smelling to high heaven because of a carcass in my backyard. Is that the end of the world? No, it is not. But you know what's not pleasant at all hours of the day and night is smelling death around you all the time. And in the same breath, my garage door spring breaks and it sounds like a shotgun is going off in my garage. And I go out there and I'm like, holy cow. Now, if you don't know anything about garage doors, which I don't, if the spring goes out, you can't just lift your garage door. That thing's like 500 pounds. I didn't know this. So I'm literally like, Gah! No movement at all. I go back inside. At least I've got one other garage door I can use. Except, bam! Another shotgun goes off. The other door breaks within 24 hours. The garage door company comes out and they say, in 14 years, we have never seen this one time. This is unbelievable. I'm so happy to gift you this, garage door company. But we had to go several days. I can't even get the lawnmower out of the garage. I can't get a thing out of the garage. I've got trash in trash cans that can't get out of the garage. So I've got more stinky smell happening, right? I mean, all over the place. And I'm like, God, I'm trying to get ahead here. I'm trying to be faithful here. Okay, it's not the end of the world. Then you're driving your Suburban, and it stops driving in the middle of the road. Just stops driving in the middle of the road. Okay, get it to the mechanic. Transmission's out. It's going to have to be replaced. It's going to cost you about $8,000. $8,000 if you lost, and I told them this on the phone, you're not even in the same galaxy as me in terms of what I can afford to pay for this. We're not even in the same galaxy. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go find, Billy Bob's transmission shop and get it towed there, right? Because the main mechanic, there's just, I can't afford that. Guess how I feel? Frustrated, angry, discouraged. Many of you know I had a medical emergency last year, and I have been one bill away from being done. And then you get hit, right? And I'm telling you nothing that you also do not know in your context, where you're like, yes, here we go. Inning after inning after inning after inning, this is happening. You can feel the electricity, like we're going to win this thing. Bam! And then a 2-run homer wrecks the whole thing. And then wait a second, what? I don't even get the win? You bring the other pitcher in, and now the whole game is lost? Are you kidding me? Is anything ever going to change? And this is how discouragement really feels. It's just never going to change. I've done the online dating 1,000 times, and there's not one moment that really allows me to say, you know what, maybe there's some future here. Over and over again, is there nothing, is it ever going to change? We're almost out of debt. We're almost there. Boom, you know the story. We're working on the marriage, setback. I'm praying for the team, setback. And so you feel it. But I want you to hear this, and I'm going to get practical in just a second. The enemy wants you to see one thing, and that's that one out that got away from you, while somehow ignoring the greatest game of your life. That was the previous 26. One after the next, strikeout, fielded, pop fly, nothing, boom, win. 2-run homer, and now your life feels like you are not winning. And so we have a bad moment, and we mistake it for having a bad life. And you don't have a bad life. God has actually been extraordinarily faithful in your life. But we get stuck on the singular moments, and we let those define everything else that's come before us. Right. And that's how discouragement works. That is what the enemy does. That is how he whispers to you. That is how he gets things he creeps into your heart and into your mind. And he has you believing the lie. So what did David do? I talked a little bit about this last week, so I'm not going to spend a ton on this single point. David looks at King Saul after Saul is like, you're too small for this, bro. Like, you didn't go to war college. You don't know how to fight this giant. But David does one thing in this moment. He remembers God's faithfulness. He remembers the previous 26 outs. And he says in verse 37 to Saul that the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of the Philistines. In other words, David is able to look back. And it's because he looks back that he has strength. Looking back strengthens him for looking forward. And you and I need to do the same thing. When you are looking forward and discouragement is knocking on your door, you need to stop what you're doing and you need to actually take a look one more time at all the moments God has been there, done that, moved, showed up, delivered, set you free, rescued you, made your life move in a particular direction. He didn't fail you. He didn't abandon you. He hasn't forsaken you. But you've got to look back and remember it in order to have the faith to step into what God would have you do moving forward. Do you understand, church, what I'm saying to you? You've got to look back and see God's faithfulness, and that will give your soul strength. And you can take a look at those whispering lies, and you can say, I don't think so. How dare you come at me and defy the armies of the living God? How dare you? This battle belongs to my Lord. If we want to take it one step further, what David says to Goliath, right in his face, this day I'm going to kill you and I'm going to cut off your head. Whoa, that's kind of intense. I didn't even talk about the fact that we had snakes in our house a few months ago. We did. That happened inside my house. Bringing them in the trash can to the woods like a half mile away until the third one showed up. And then I was like, Blade, your head gets cut off today. Right in the front yard. Happened. Mercy was gone. Here's where I want to camp out though, church. David looked back and it gave him the strength to look forward. But you know what else David does? David built a life of worship. And I told you I've struggled doing some of this. I struggle with point one for sure. I've been focusing on, in my own life, just the one out that hasn't worked my way. But David was known, they described him as this young boy who walked around like he literally is in his village or at his farm. People knew him as the young boy who had the harp. Meaning, this guy, this young little rascal, shepherding the farm, we know for a fact because of the Psalms that while he's working and while he's just doing his life, he has a heart of worship. I don't know how to play the harp, but I feel like it would look like this, and you're kind of just, no, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's bigger than that. I don't know. I don't know how to play the harp. I'm not going to learn how to play the harp. But my man is carrying it around. And the same God who delivered him from the lion and the bear is the same God that he's worshiping on the day in and day out, in the regular rhythms of his life. It's not compartmentalized. Do you hear this? Church isn't something that he just does. Church isn't something that he went to, right? David worshiped God, yes, in the synagogue, but he worshiped God also in just the regular rhythms of his life. He worshiped in the ordinary. He worshiped in the sacred. In other words, his courage, right, was formed because he knew God and had relationship with him. But where did he learn that? How did he have relationship with him? Courage was formed in the pasture before it was ever revealed in the valley. Are you understanding this? Many times we look and we're like, oh my gosh, the giant has showed up in my life. And we think we're going to somehow get spiritually strong in this moment for this fight. But you don't understand that it's all those moments leading up to it that actually give you strength. That's where your courage comes from, right? It's you sitting on the rock in the middle of the night, playing the harp in front of the sheep, and the boring job, the stinky job, the things that nobody else wants to do. You're just doing it because you're faithful, because you love the Lord, and your life is worship unto Him. Some of you are in awful commutes every day. Awful, demonic commutes. How do you cultivate rhythms of worship in all the things that you do? You get up in the morning, teens, you do the same things every day. You got to get ready for school. You got to eat breakfast. You got to get your backpack loaded up. It only weighs 947 pounds, right? How do you cultivate a life as a high schooler or a middle schooler that worships God in the morning before school? What about at school? I'm not saying you've got to be the weird person who's like, and like a monk. No. But just you are worshipful in your daily rhythm. Yeah. You're prayerful. You're expectant. You're looking for God opportunities. Even when you take that test, you're saying to yourself, God, before I'm worried about a grade, this is about, I'm doing the best I can on this test and in this class because this is part of my worship to you. In my marriage and in my parenting, it's not this little slice of your life, and this is the difference. If a relationship with God becomes a part of your life, you'll never have real courage because it's just this relegated little portion of things. What David did is he built a life of worship. God was his everything. What is it that David longed for? My paraphrase in one of his Psalms, Lord, for me to just be a doorknob in the courts of your temple. Like to let me be in your presence. This is all I ask for. Whew. God was his everything, not his little slice of things over here. You guys with me? It's tracking. Courage is formed in the pasture before it's ever revealed in the valley. The other thing that David did is he spoke words of faith. See, discouragement, it speaks to you, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, discouragement, it whispers, but make no mistake, it has a voice and it speaks. And you have to speak right back. There is something about you, and I'm not talking about you thinking things in your mind. I am literally telling you what I know is true, that you, by the Spirit of God, need to open your mouth and speak what you know is true. You need to do this. You have to begin doing this. Full transparency, church. What can also discourage a pastor is standing and preaching and people hearing what is being said, but not actually doing it. And I am challenging you and exhorting you to become the kind of faith-filled believer who stands up in the face of discouragement, opens your mouth, and speaks straight to the lie. This is a big fat lie, and I will not take it. I went to a Lego store grand opening yesterday. If you don't know, I'm into, as a hobbyist, like the 18 and up Lego sets. Don't care. You're like, that's dorky. Yeah, whatever, I don't care. That's how I roll. So there in Marietta, a new store is opening, and there's a family that's so excited. They had the cast from Lego Masters there. They had street tacos being made, right there on the outside. And when people don't speak your language that's making the food, like, this is going to be legit. And it was off the charts. And they open the doors and, people are like, yeah, they're clapping, and there's balloons, and it's, whatever. It's fun. They had a raffle also for a $500 Lego set, and I did not win it. And I was like, Lord, you could not have discouraged me more. We joked about it. Joking aside, there was a guy right next to me in the store. He had a lot to say. Mind you, you have a family who has arguably spent a great deal of money to open this store. They're so happy. They're so excited. The community is enjoying themselves. Except for the one guy who's got to gripe about all these things. He's standing right next to me. Now, if you know me, it can be very difficult at times for me to keep my mouth quiet in these moments. And I have some pent-up frustration happening from the past couple weeks. This guy's standing next to me, and he's like, what do you think of these prices? I'm like, first off, I know the price. It's about $5 more than the average, place you buy. $5. It's a brick and mortar store. You better know that it's going to be more expensive than Amazon. It's going to be. The guy's sitting there, what do you think of these prices? And all I wanted to look at him was say, get out of here. I don't even know this family, but we don't want you here. You don't belong here. Just cut him down. But I didn't. I didn't do that. I looked at him and I said, you know what? I love it. I can't wait to buy this set. That's $5 overpriced. Just to support what they're doing. And by the way, there's amazing free tacos outside. By the way, they just rolled outside while you were waiting with free donuts, water, coffee, food. They're giving away $500 sets, you yo-yo. Like, what are you thinking? You're going to roll up in the grand opening and just be a bitterberry and grumble and complain? Get out of here. And I didn't say get out of here. I said, you know what? Isn't this great? Look at this set that I've got that's retired. Nobody else can even get their hands on it, but I got it. I can't even wait. Oh, my this and that. I'm going to put it on my Lego wall at home. It's terrific. Isn't this amazing? And I tell you what, the guy, he looked at me and he just began to shut down. He stopped talking. Didn't have a whole lot to say. Why? Because the contagion of discouragement was coming to an end right here. Right? In other words, you're going to breathe this and you're going to try to get me discouraged in this moment and get me griping in this moment. And then I'm going to turn and I'm going to do the same thing. Discouragement is unbelievably contagious. It's so contagious in a church. It's so contagious in a house. It's so contagious at work. It's so contagious on a team. That is why sometimes even just having a player on the team who may not be the best hitter or the best thrower or the best pitcher, but has something to bring to the clubhouse in terms of character and integrity, and they know how to infuse life and courage into a team. There's something about being courageous and putting an end to the lie. You've got to shut that thing down. And the only way you can speak truth, biblical truth, to lies is if you know the Word and you're in it. You're prayerful. You know God's voice. You can repeat what you know the Spirit is saying. That's not true. Are things just quit now? It's never going to change. Does that sound like the voice of my Heavenly Father? I don't think it does. In fact, when I read the Scriptures, I see over and over and over and over again a God that moves in the midnight hour, a God that moves when all hope seems lost, a God that moves when things are dead and yet He brings them to life. How does a God do that? That's the kind of God that I serve. The God where I'm up against the wall and He makes a way. A God that breathes literal life into my bones. I want you to hear this, church. You've got to speak life. You've got to open your mouth and speak what's true, and then not be someone who just hears the word, but somebody who actually does it. Yeah. Discouragement would have you come home and sit on the couch and disengage. Because why? Because you feel weary, which is why Paul says, don't grow weary. Yeah. Discouragement would have you not coming and being a part of corporate worship. Why? Because it's too hard. I don't want to be around people. I don't want to do this. And yet it's an upside down kingdom. If you will actually do the very thing that feels hard and feels difficult, the thing that you don't want to do, it's the very place where God's grace meets you. I don't have any money to give, and I'm discouraged by it. I hear that. I hear that. And yet I'm going to be faithful right here, even with this little that I have. And you know what the Word promises me? That as I give, it defies my logic. I'll have more to even be generous with. How does that even make sense? I'm literally physically exhausted, and yet God tells me in the Word that as I pour into others, God pours into me. He who refreshes others, will He Himself be refreshed. How is that possible? Because that's the truth of the kingdom. And when the lies come, you've got to know what's true, address it, speak to it, and live like David. What did David do? He looked back before he looked forward, right? He spoke words of faith, and he built a life of worship. Stand to your feet. Even as we stand, I'm not suggesting that it's easy. This is a battle. That's why this is called a giant, and it is a real giant. And I openly admitted to you, I've been struggling in this battle. Me fighting this guy. He's gotten a few shots off at me lately. And I had to remind myself to do this and live this way. If I want to overcome the battle or the giant of discouragement. Father, thank you, Lord, for this time together. God, I know there are people in this room who are feeling discouraged. God, for whatever reason it might be, they feel it, Lord. It's just been seeping out of them, Lord, a discouragement, a question as to whether they're really going to see change, whether they're really going to see your goodness. And God, I pray in this moment, Lord, that we would shift our perspective. Lord, and that we would see you, we'd see how faithful that you've been, first and foremost. God, that we would allow some of the most normal aspects of our life to become places of vibrant worship. God, and that we would be the kind of people who get off that spiritual couch, Lord, and speak straight to the lies coming against us. Lord, that we would speak truth, your biblical truth. Right to it, God. That we might have courage fill our heart and soul today. Amen.